In this video, I'm going to explain to you guys how to best resolve a situation that comes up a lot in the game. So, a lot of the time this unit will want to chaff a very dangerous unit, and so they're going to position themselves at an angle like this to block any other charges, to block this unit from charging another unit that may be back here somewhere. And so most of the time it's obvious that this unit cannot move and is forced to charge this chaff unit. Like in this situation, it's very clear. But in a lot of cases, it's not that clear. Like for example, if this chaff unit was a bit further, say about here, well, it's clear that if this ogre unit wants to pivot about this point and wheel this way like this, counterclockwise, it's obvious it's pretty jammed up. But what about the other way? What about if it wants to wheel from this pivot point? So a lot of people, what they would do is test it out. So just go ahead, take the unit, move it, and then see if it passes like this. All right. Now I really don't like doing this because you lose the original position of the unit first of all, and even if you do use those little markers, you are essentially still moving the unit, and it's tough sometimes to know if it's touching or not by physically moving models. If you know the size of the bases, okay, so I know these ones are 40 mil each, so the width of this unit is 40 times 4, so it'd be 160 millimeters. So that means that this unit here will pivot about this point in a radius of 160 millimeters. So what that means is that if the distance from the closest point of this unit to the center of my circle is less than 160 millimeters, then the unit's blocked. If it's more than 160, it's not blocked. So because we know that, we can just go ahead and measure it, and we don't need to move any units at all. Okay? So what we're going to do is take out this tape measure. Okay. So we're going to take the tape measure, put it right where our center is like this, and then we're going to go ahead and measure the distance between the pivot point right here and the unit that's blocking right here. That's the closest point. So we need that distance. So let's see, go ahead and measure that. Now it's really useful to have a tape measure that has imperial and metric because base sizes are in millimeters, so we can easily measure millimeters here. And what I can measure here is that the distance is between 15 and 16. And so because it's less than 160 millimeters or 16 centimeters, then that means that unit is blocked and it won't be able to wheel around that unit. And I didn't move any units at all, I just had to take out my tape measure and measure it. You have to talk to your opponent because the physical bases of the models sometimes are not equal to what the specified base size is. So if you know Games Workshop bases are actually not what they're supposed to be. So Games Workshop bases are actually always 2 or 3 millimeters smaller. And so what that means is that this unit will not be 160 millimeters in real life. So if I go ahead and measure that, I'm going to see here, it's 4 bases of supposedly 40 millimeters, but what I can measure here, okay, is about 15.4 centimeters, so 154. And so it's important to discuss with your opponent if you want to use the official size of the units or if you want to use the physical size of the units in the game, because it's not always equal. If you want to use the actual size of these models, then you can go ahead and measure it. So I'd measure 15.4 and then I'd measure here the 15.4, okay? So what do I get here? I get, it's actually barely passing, okay? It's barely passing, but it's very close. So you can even use a tool like this. If you have a tool like this, see this? You can easily just go ahead and put it like that and then measure like this. Okay, so in this case this one doesn't go up to 160, it's a little too small, but you understand the idea. So you go ahead and place it to the opposite point and then just go ahead and check this side like that. and if it touches the unit, it's blocked. If it doesn't, it's not blocked. It's important to understand that this concept applies to many more situations in the game that can happen. Like for example, this ogre unit wants to charge, but it can't afford to move forward past this unit and then wheel because there's a building that's blocking. So what it has to do is wheel right away about this point. And so what we need to figure out is if by wheeling it's going to clip that enemy unit or not. Because if it clips this unit, it's an illegal charge. So what we need to do is actually measure the distance from this diagonal of the unit, which is from this point here to that point there. We're going to measure that, and then we're going to measure the distance between that corner and that unit there, and we're going to apply the same logic, is that if that value from here to there is larger than from here to there, then the unit can pass and everything's good. Otherwise, it's blocked. Okay, so this is another one of these ambiguous situations. If the unit was like this, okay, that'd be obvious. That'd be really obvious it can't do it. But what about if it's something a bit more ambiguous like this? Well, you'd need to measure it. And so this is how you're going to measure this this value. Alright, so I've come back with one of these markers, and because it's very difficult to measure the distance between this point here and that point on that unit because of the height of the physical models, what we need to do is actually remove the unit. And so if you use the Pythagoras theorem, you can figure out that the distance between that corner and that corner of the unit is the square root of twice 160 squared, okay? 160 millimeters squared. And it's approximately 226.3 millimeters. So I'm going to go ahead and put this marker right there and carefully, okay, see how tricky it is? Okay, put the marker there, remove the unit like this. Alright, so now we're going to measure the distance between that corner and that unit. Alright, so I've got the tape measure out, and the distance from that marker to that unit is over 23 centimeters, which is more than 22.6. So in this case, that unit's going to pass. So all you got to do now is remove the tape measure, alright, and place that unit back where it was using the marker, and carefully, and there we go. So now we can go ahead and perform that charge. Now in conclusion, it's important to measure distances and get in that habit of measuring distances between units as opposed to moving them back and forth in such a way that we lose the original position of the unit and really muck stuff up in the game. Alright, it's a very good habit to get into, and it'll make for more enjoyable games and avoid arguments. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you on the next one.